Elsewhere around Latin America, the Colombian government has activated a security plan in all the municipalities in order to prevent criminal acts. Now, the Department of Antioquia alone has 49 municipalities at risk of electoral fraud and violence as elections there approach on Sunday.
We have several municipalities under observation, like Cartago, Sarchal, Tulagua, Rio Frio, Florida, Pradera, Cerrito, Buenaventura, where we will deploy special investigative teams to prevent corruption and electoral crimes. We also have special teams to attend any situation or any attempts of public order disturbance.
The Colombian army killed 6 members of the ELN guerrilla group and 3 of the Clan Usuga drug gang on Thursday in 2 separate operations. Now 4 other Usuga members were captured. The ELN group has been in peace talks with the government since 2014, but has not yet opened a formal peace process like the one sealed with the FARC. And for more now on those stories in Colombia, the local and regional elections primarily, we turn to our correspondent Natalia Margarita there in the capital of Bogota. Hello there, Natalia. Now in Colombia, there's been a history of electoral fraud, vote buying. We've seen that in the past. Oftentimes it's in exchange for food. The Electoral Observation Mission said in September that 20% of the municipalities are at risk there of electoral fraud. What is being done to assure free and fair elections?
In fact, the latest figures that the electoral authorities here in Colombia have released are definitely frightening figures, Cody. For instance, the prosecution have said that out of the 114,000 candidates that are running for these coming elections on Sunday, 103,000 are having investigations by the prosecution. What we're talking about here is 90% of the candidates running for these elections are being investigated by the prosecution. On the other side, in terms of the votes that are under risk of being bought, there has been estimations lately that say that around 1 million votes might be under risk of being bought. Some magistrates from the National Electoral Council have said that the estimations more or less is that $170 million will be in cash circulating this Sunday in the streets of the different regions and municipalities of Colombia, ready to be invested in this buying of votes. We're talking, again, I insist, $170 million. On the other side, regarding what the authorities have been doing, they have said that corruption and lack of transparency is that big here in Colombia that it overwhelms the capacity to respond and to act by the authorities. So in this sense, we more or less can conclude that there is little that can be done for this Sunday. The elections are definitely under risk of fraud. And what they have been saying also is that right after these elections, Colombia will have to face a public national debate regarding our current electoral system, so that for the future, we can prevent this risk and this lack of transparency and corruption from happening again, Cody.
And Natalia, we know that in the past, drug trafficking has been closely attached to elections, and certain campaigns have been funded by drug money in the past, and we know there have been some connections between candidates and drug money in this process. So to talk a little bit about that and the concerns as it relates to drugs and drug money.
Yeah, that's one of the main issues. Definitely, it has to do with corruption and all this money that, as I said before, it's being put into the streets ready to buy votes. And is this alliance here in Colombia between the traditional parties, the traditional political class of Colombia, and illegal armed groups such as paramilitaries, for instance, but also drug money. So when I mentioned in the question you asked before, these 100 $670 million. Of course, this money has to come to a great extent from these drug trafficking and illegal armed groups. So it definitely has played a role here, and it plays a role in corruption and in this lack of transparency for the coming elections. Something that, of course, in the wake of the current peace process is what other alternative movements and small political parties have been pointing out, that we need guarantees, political guarantees of participation here in Colombia, and that as long as these links and alliance between the traditional classes, the paramilitaries, and drug trafficking remains here in Colombia, that we will never be able to really construct peace here in the ground. And that's also, to conclude, Cody, what is really, really important in these coming elections, what is at stake here in Colombia is the election of those who are supposed and are going to have the responsibility to implement those peace accords that with lots of effort the FARC and the government have been constructing over the course of 3 years there in Havana. This is in reality what is at stake this coming Sunday here in Colombia, the implementation of these peace accords in the future.
And we were seeing someone with the front page of a newspaper there that said 6 months until they reach those accords. We remember recently the president there, Juan Manuel Santos, said that he hoped they would reach an accord in that time. So we know these new candidates will deal with whatever agreement they reach there in Cuba. Natalia Margarita reporting from Colombia. Thanks so much for your coverage, Natalia.
Back to you, Cody.